Good afternoon, everyone. It's 5 o'clock and it's time to start our Hurricane Expo for the city of Southport. And nothing that you can do will mitigate the strength of a hurricane, but there's plenty that you can do before it hits to get ready. And that's what this expo is all about, to give you valuable information from each of our departments with the city of Southport to help you prepare and plan ahead. That's the important thing, is preparation. So having a plan is paramount during hurricane season. You all know that hurricane season starts June the 1st. Don't wait until the storm is brewing and headed your way to institute your plan. Prepare early, prepare now, and that's what this expo is all about. We're honored to have Mayor Hayden with us. He's going to come at this time and give us a welcome address for everybody. We appreciate all of our citizens and staff that's here. Mayor Hayden.
Thank you, Chief True. It is an honor for me to welcome everyone here to this Hurricane Expo. If Southport can't have a Hurricane Expo, then no town in North Carolina should have one, as many as our citizens have gone through. And we're so fortunate in Southport. If you see our Chief True, thank you for your experience. He's our incident commander, our fire, our EMS, our police. They've been through this so many times that as mayor, I don't have to worry about a thing, believe me. And it is just so important, as the chief said, is to be prepared. Prevention, so important. We know these storms are coming, so be ready for them. And I tease them. I know they think that I was here when Hazel hit, but I really wasn't. But I was here for Hurricane Diane. That was the first one. And the First Lady and I rode Florence out at Dozier Hospital for 8 days and nights. So we're very familiar with it. So thank you for putting on this expo. And again, welcome everyone. And thank you again for all you did to put this on. So thank you, Chief.
We are very honored and privileged to have WWAY here is going to be doing live broadcasts from the front lawn for their 5:30 news show. And at this time, we're going to turn the beginning part of the expo over to Hannah and Jake and let them come and talk to us today. So we want to welcome them with a hand clap.
Hello, I am Hannah Patrick, and this is Jake Eichstead. He's actually our sports director, filling in for Chief Meteorologist Lee Haywood, although he cannot answer the same questions that Lee could, but that's okay. He can answer some other ones. So I actually moved here 9 years ago, and the first hurricane I ever covered was Hurricane Arthur, and I got to be out here. There was no one else here, as it should be. But since then, I have covered several different storms, and I can tell you about our importance as a news agency when it comes to storms. So we are required by the FCC, especially if there's a tornado, to be on air. So that's why sometimes even if it's not hurricane season, if maybe you're watching your favorite sports team and the news cuts in because there's a tornado, we are required by the FCC to be on if there's a tornado warning. And sometimes that happens during hurricanes, but also during hurricanes, they expect us to be on. The requirements are a little bit different. But I remember during Hurricane Florence, we were on for 83.5 hours, and at some point, I want to say maybe at 70 hours, we thought we were going to be done, but the FCC said, no, we think you guys need to stay on, so we wound up staying on for another 13 whatever hours I had lost sleep over, but it was really important for us to be on for that 83.5 hours. I don't know how many of you were here for Hurricane Florence, but that was a crazy experience for anyone who was here, and I think the biggest thing, the most important thing I can tell you is that when we start telling you before the storm that there are mandatory or any kind of evacuations, we're telling you that because there are a lot of dangers if you stay. And based on Florence, I can tell you that the people who did stay and tried to put Band-Aids on in the middle of the storm or after the storm, started cleaning before it was time to start cleaning, unfortunately, those were the stories that we had to tell that turned into tragedy sometimes, like when trees fall on homes in the middle of a storm and emergency services can't get out to you. And that's also difficult because if you stay, especially when there's a mandatory evacuation, that means that emergency services might have to risk their lives to come out in the middle of the storm if you have an emergency. So it's our job to try and tell you guys the importance of leaving or staying or whatever the emergency and public officials are telling us, relay that to you. And then during the storm, we stay. Whether it's Category 1 or Category 5, we are required to stay, and we do, for 83.5 hours sometimes, and it's difficult. But it is really important, and we take that job really seriously about being there and telling you guys what's happening. If you do have to leave, we're telling you you can watch the live stream what's happening. We try and take live looks at different beaches or different cameras that we can take to try and show you maybe the island that you live on or the town that you live in, and show you the pictures from what's happening, so that way, hopefully that convinces you to not stay and just watch the live stream to see what's happening instead of trying to put the Band-Aids on in the middle of the storm that may wind up being life-threatening. So there are many parts of our job when it comes to covering a storm. We follow a buddy system. I can also tell you that the national news coverage of storms is very different than local news. I think sometimes national news is a little bit more dramatic. I'm sure you guys have seen the video sometimes of them in a boat and then somebody's like walking behind them. We try not to do that. We also follow a very serious buddy system. I'll let Jake talk a little bit more about that. He got to cover Hurricane Ian
last year
with one of our reporters. So talk about what happens in the field.
I guess before I get into that too, just to touch on like the importance of events like this, like what Hannah is illustrating is like this isn't something to prepare for the day before a storm. This is something you need to be ready for. Brunswick County has a lot of people who are, of course, familiar with storms, but it's one of the biggest growing areas in the country. There's a lot of people like me who have never experienced a hurricane before, so that's why things like this are so important, more than just tuning in the day of or the day before thinking you're prepared. You most likely are not at that point. I did find that out when I went to co-cover Hurricane Ian. We were actually down here outside of the community center shooting our live shots for the 5 and 5:30 show. I was with Sydney Bouchel. We were down here on Bay Street, and me, somebody who's never seen anything like a hurricane before, we were all just on like the outskirts of what was a Category 1 by that point. But it was mesmerizing to see these winds blowing off, especially just off the shore, and how much water was coming up on Bay Street and things like that. So the buddy system, incredibly important and something we take super seriously. Always out with another reporter, a lot of times just trying to stay in constant communication and at least have EMS be able to have their eyes on you, especially if you're out doing a live shot, trying to get as close to the storm as you can while also abiding by things like the warnings, and if there, hopefully nothing serious is coming to shore, then we would actually have to leave at that point, especially if we're on, let's say, one of the island beaches. We can't get stuck out there, especially with the cars that we have and the other equipment. I know we've had some other stories of equipment casualties just from being maybe 1, 2, or 3 minutes behind of what we should have been, and being more proactive and moving out. But as much of a challenge it is exhilarating to be able to see the storm firsthand. And like I said, like we were just on the outskirts of it, and luckily there was no serious damage to any kind of properties here or any kind of businesses here. But it's just to have been a part of the coverage of the first one. It's exhilarating. It's fun to just to be out there, as long as everybody is doing it the right way, doing it safe, and of course, obviously, we try and make sure that the community is doing so as well. If other people out here on their cell phones, trying to record the storms, there's always going to be some of those people, but just make sure that they're being safe as well.
And we do a lot of times rely on the community when it comes to weather events, but we always try and tell you to do it safely. And I just want to go ahead and say that if you do take it, make sure you turn your phone sideways, because that's important for TV. But aside from that, the other thing too that I know it's difficult sometimes to understand, like when we tell you, not to go outside or to leave, and we stay, or we go stand outside where we're telling you not to stand. We are trained, and we do have to follow very specific protocols, and we also follow the buddy system, and we are also told by our bosses, and they are very serious about this, that if there's any situation that we get into that we are uncomfortable with, we say no, and we don't do it. So we're never forced to be in situations that might be life-threatening or that kind of thing. And we do take our jobs very seriously when it comes to storm coverage. I will say I did also learn the hard way about following some of the rules. One of my earlier storms that I got to cover was Hurricane Matthew, and we were trying to get from actually Southport to Oak Island to do a live shot near where the pier had ripped off during that storm. And we were out before curfew, which you should not do, and I think we were driving through some water, and I think there was a knife or something under the water, and popped my tire in the middle of, well, it was kind of like the end of Hurricane Matthew, but also that meant like there weren't tow trucks or things that could come help me, so that also wound up hurting our coverage because we no longer had a car, so that made an interesting situation out of covering Hurricane Matthew. But we do try to follow all the safety protocols and that kind of thing when it comes to actually covering the storm, but we will also stay on air for as long as we possibly have to keep you guys informed when there's a storm here, before, after, before, during, and after. Sometimes our coverage will start a day before the storm gets to us. We'll stay on air for the entire duration of the storm, and then sometimes for a little while after, and then our coverage of a storm can continue for months after, depending on how bad it was, especially with Hurricane Florence. I mean, we were still covering different aspects and stories of Hurricane Florence probably for 2 or 3 weeks afterwards. So, did we get this working? No, that's okay. Just want to check. Are we good with Q&A? A little bit? Okay. So I'd love to let you guys ask questions this year. I know last year we missed the Q&A, so if you guys have any questions, we'd love to answer when it comes to storm coverage or anything you have for us.
Just please raise your hand. I'll bring you a microphone so the folks back home can hear your question as well, because we are live streaming this on Facebook and YouTube and the website.
Oh, awesome. Good to know. Afterwards.
Sorry, Hannah.
No, it's all good. Did you have anything else you wanted to add? Okay. Don't be shy. And I've covered many different hurricanes. I don't know if there's like a specific hurricane or how many hurricanes. Have a lot of you been here for a while? Yeah? Lots of hurricanes?
5 years.
Oh, okay, 5 years. So that would have been, were you here for Matthew? Okay. Just after Matthew? Wow, that was a long time. Florence, okay. Florence was a life-changing part of my career. I know I keep bringing it up, but we did shifts of, it was gonna start with 12 on, 12 off. We wound up switching midway and did 9 on, 7 off. So that meant for 9 hours, I was sitting at the anchor desk for 9 hours straight. And then for 7 hours, I could choose if I wanted to sleep, eat, take a shower, or I don't know, breathe. Yeah, and then 9 hours again. And so we did that 9-7, 9-7 for 83.5 hours. And that also meant for the meteorologists, whenever the meteorologists would start talking during a storm, they would do a 20-minute weather hit every time. So that was actually when I would take my food breaks. When the meteorologist would get up, I knew I had 20 minutes, so that's when I would run and make like a PB&J real quick and shove it in my face. And then I would use my 7 hours to sleep if I could. So we all usually stay at the station or stay sometimes at a hotel nearby, but it's honestly just easier for us all to sleep at the station. So we will bring sleeping bags and air mattresses and live at the station together for however long a storm takes. So, any questions?
I see that the high schools in Brunswick County are pretty much the shelters. Where are the evacuation routes?
Ooh, that's a great question. I'm hoping somebody else here will have that answer. I don't know exactly what the evacuation routes, but during a storm, we would probably be given that information and we would read that to you. But just off the top of my head, I don't know the exact evacuation routes. But that was a great question for hopefully somebody else. Well, just so you guys know, we are going to be doing the Good Evening Wilmington newscast starting at 5:30 outside. So I know you guys will probably be in here, but if you want to come check that out, we'll be live from 5:30 to 6, and then I think we're also going to do another live hit at 6. So thanks for coming, and thanks for having us.
We're very excited to have our city manager, Bonnie Theron, with us, and she's going to come and do a presentation on emergency operations in the city.
Good evening. Thank you all for coming. Before I get started, I would like to have all of our public safety people stand up and we give them a round of applause, because when you're in an emergency, it is these people. Because when we have an emergency, it's going to be those people Chief Coring, his people, that are going to be working this 24/7. And without them, I don't know what I would do as somebody who's, has to try to organize along with our emergency operations director, Chief Drew, what the heck and how we're going to handle all of this. So without all of you, this would never be successful. So before I start, just a little background for those who do not know me. I am originally from Connecticut. I've been a manager in Connecticut for 30 years, roughly. So I've seen it all. I went through Superstorm Sandy. I've done major blizzards. I had a tornado come up out of nowhere when I was in Connecticut and take out a large chunk of the historic district. I've had ice storms that are absolutely beautiful to look at and have taken out every single communication tool we had. Cell phone towers were down. There was no way we could communicate with the public, and we had to get really innovative that time. And what we ended up having to do was, because they didn't go back up, I'd say, for 2 days in that ice storm. What we really ended up having to do was using our public safety people, was going around with bullhorns to try to get the word out about, showers and shelter and where people had to go, because the town that I was in at the time, everybody was on septic and wells. So once the power goes, they can't use any of it. So that was probably one of the hardest ones we had to deal with. So I've seen them all. I have slept on more cots in police and fire departments than I care to say. And I just want to tell the chiefs no, I don't want to do it this year. I'm too old to sleep on the cots anymore. But of course, we would all be there if needed. Oops, sorry. So you might want to know who's in the room when we are located over at the fire department, because that's where the emergency operations center is, up on the second floor. So the emergency manager in our case is Chief Drew. I would be there. We'll have representatives from every department that you're going to hear from today, which is police, fire, public services, communications. Eventually, I'm going to have finance there, but I usually don't start with them. But I definitely are going to have them, because we may need to start making emergency plans of how we're going to fund this thing. I will be in touch with the elected officials, because usually we are going to have to declare an emergency in order to get FEMA reimbursement. I hope it wasn't something I said. There they go to do their thing, as they always do. So that's who's in the room beforehand, if we know the weather's coming beforehand. As I said, it's in the training room in the main fire department. We will be there 24/7 during the storm. I will tell you, the emergency staff puts in long hours. As Hannah was just talking about what they do, so that we have to try to have as many people as we can, depending on how long this thing lasts. You're going to have shifts, because people can only do so many hours without sleep. So we have to also prepare all of that. And I've talked to Chief Drew. We've got to start doing more drills and more exercises before the weather hits, so we all know what we would do in case of an emergency. As I said, blizzards are coming. Hurricanes are coming. You do not know when that tornado's coming. You may get a kind of there's a watch out or something like that, but you don't know, when that thing comes in, it is scary as all hell, really, because it will just pick up area and just bounce or whatever and just destroy it, but you won't have that warning. But at least with the hurricanes and the blizzards, and you don't get blizzards, hurricanes and those types of things, you would have it. We are in the midst of trying to rewrite our emergency operations plan. What was it done, Chief? 2006. So we are working on that to update that. So what can you do to prepare for this? They always tell you this, and I always try to stress it. I would say for the first 2 to 3 days of a storm, you're on your own. That's what I usually tell people. So get the water, get your food. If you're staying, then you need to prepare, so you cannot rely on us right away. I mean, certainly we'll be there if we can, but if this storm is bad enough, there may not be a way we can get to anybody for a while. So make sure you've got a plan in place, as Chief True mentioned. Either you have it in writing, you rehearse it with your family, you know where the flashlights or whatever it is you're going to need to survive are located, and don't wait for the last minute to do that. Again, have food and water for at least 2 to 3 days, and listen and heed what the emergency staff are telling you, because I have seen this happen over and over. You get a hurricane, the eye goes over, and everybody's outside. Oh, it's beautiful, it's so calm. And here comes the second half. And so you really have to heed what you're hearing, what you're seeing, and stay, in place where whatever's needed. If they tell you to evacuate, evacuate. There's a reason they're telling you that. So it's very, very important you listen to the staff. I would also make sure you know the emergency phone numbers, the website, so if we don't lose the power, at least you know you can get a lot of information off of that. Facebook, whatever, we will be posting it constantly. So the only thing I can tell you with all these is be prepared, prepare, prepare, prepare. Stay in a safe location. Look out for your neighbors, especially the elderly. You need to make sure that somebody is watching over them. And listen to the emergency city staff. I think that's the most important thing. We'll get you through it. It's just going to take some time. So be patient too, especially the aftermath. So with that, Chief Drew, are you next, I believe? And I'll bet you Chief Drew can answer the question on the evacuation routes.
Thank you, ma'am.
Yep.
And we will have a question and answer session toward the end, and you'll be able to ask any questions. The question you ask about evacuation routes, well, unfortunately, out of Southport, Highway 211, 87, that's your evacuation routes to get to Highway 17, whether you're going to go north or south. So we're pretty limited on evacuation routes in the city. And we'll have a follow-up if you have other questions about that. I am supposed to go next, but I have to be outside for their 5:30 live. So Chief Coring is going to come and do his presentation, and then he's going to be followed up by our Public Services Department. Our Public Services Director, Tom Stanley, will come after Chief Coring.
All right, thank you, Chief. So I'm going to breeze through his slides if I do this correctly. Okay. Just getting there. Okay, there we go. So again, thank you for being here. My name is Chief Coring. I'm the police chief here in Southport, and again, being a native of Southport, born and raised, I've sat through many hurricanes here. They are very dangerous times, can be scary times, especially if you've never been through one. So I appreciate those of you who are here to try and learn as much as you can. The evacuation routes is not part of my plan, but we, as Chief Drew said, we shuttle everyone through 211 or out George to Highway 87 out to 17, and those will, depending on the level of the storm, they will be staffed by highway patrol, deputies, and so on. So depending on the urgency of the storm, kind of depends on that. But some things that we want you to be aware of as the police department, main things that I would like to say, instead of reading this word for word, a lot of things that we try to do, again, you'll hear repetitively today, watch for your weather announcements, TV, have something that's battery operated if you do not already own something. A lot of people are kind of going away from that, believe it or not, but you need to have a radio or something that is battery operated or some kind of a battery backup for your phones, because it's very important that you stay in tune to all of the information that's going on. We try to get that out as much as we can, as the manager mentioned, but it's very, very urgent that you try to pay attention to everything that's going on. Prepare your homes, empty ice makers. That's something I learned, and I've been through a lot of these presentations, and you may think, why do you empty your ice maker? But that's just a simple thing. I try to throw in little simple things that you can do because you're probably going to lose power 9 times out of 10, so all of that ice that's in your refrigerator is going to melt and run all down inside your house on the floor. So as soon as your power goes out, put that ice somewhere, store it, try to use it as best you can, but you may want to do that because that's just something simple that you can kind of remember to help you out. You need to secure your breakers in your house. You hear that, I'm sure, from fire officials. Don't leave lights on. Again, outdoor buildings and things that you have. Something we're seeing a lot of dangerous things with right now are golf carts. We're a huge golf cart community here in Southport, so you need to make sure you secure those golf carts, unplug those chargers. A lot of people pull them in the garage or you're outside under the house. They leave them charged up. We've seen a lot of fires since golf carts have become so popular. I know Oak Island, Ocean Isle Beach, they all experienced some terrible fires. So we want to make sure that you know to go ahead and unplug those golf carts. So secure your outdoor furniture and those kind of things. You wouldn't believe the calls we get. I used to be a 911 dispatcher before I was in law enforcement, and we would actually get people calling in, I'm not in town, but can you have an officer go by and take my swing down off my porch, or can they secure my trash can and things like that. All of those things will become launchable items, if you will. These chairs and things, they'll go flying around. So anything you can secure in your yard ahead of time is very important because they can be dangerous. Make arrangements for your pets. I know our APS officer's in the back, and I know will echo that as well, but you would be shocked at people that don't take proper preparations for their pets. So if they're on medications and things like that, food for them, water is very, very crucial. Have all your medicines and things ready to go. Just important papers and documents that you need. Again, you heard bottled water. You know, they'll buy, that's the first things that go in the store is bottled water and bread. So what is the police department doing here in Southport when a storm is on the way? Again, I've looked at storms, and I'm also a volunteer fireman. I've been doing that for a long time as well. I think 34 years on our fire department here. This is my 5th year as the police chief. But anytime I even hear the word storm, I was getting ready this morning, and they showed something out there already they were looking at. My wife said, oh, my Lord, is that a disturbance? They're already looking at it. And there's something out there, but it doesn't appear to be anything dangerous, but we start preparing about 96 hours out. If they name a storm or we start getting ready about 96 hours ahead of time, we're already meeting with staff, talking about things, kind of, you know, getting in that preparation mode to make sure we prepare and meet with our city staff at least 48 hours ahead of time to address immediate needs. We service all of our equipment. We have a calling list at our police department you may not be aware of. We've got about 18 residents, I think, or maybe 12, that we call on every day. It's called a We Care program. And we call and check on them. These are folks that are by themselves, so we make sure and contact all of our special needs folks and make sure that there's nothing they need. A lot of these people are alone. They don't have immediate family, so we want to check on them. Staff, we're preparing our callback and stuff like that, getting our actual staff prepared. We want to make sure we have adequate staffing to man the needs that we may have. Our operated EOC function, we, as the manager said, we have someone representing in there. Usually myself or my assistant chief will be in there at all times to meet the needs for our police department and that kind of thing. A Category 1 storm, I know this map is kind of fuzzy to all of you sitting in the audience, but I saw this a while back. I can't remember where I was at, but this is the city limits and what a Category 1 storm will do to water. You can see the yellow areas right here. This is a Category 1 along the waterfront, you know, out toward the landing in that area. This is what it looks like at a Cat 3. Notice the significant change in the red. So a Category 3 storm, this is where we're going to see a lot of water start rising. These creeks, Dutchman Creek, Bonnets Creek, all of that water is going to start moving in. So a lot of times people want to say, well, why are y'all closing the road already? Or why, you know, that's just a little puddle of water across the road. But any water that is moving is dangerous. So this is just what you'll see. And heaven forbid we have a Cat 5 storm. I don't think you can see much of the city at all. So we want to make sure. I know Florence, I was with our sheriff's office back when Florence hit, and I was the emergency operations commander for our sheriff's office, and I think I was in our EOC 17 days before we were able to start getting out and about. But it's very, very important. Water will devastate. We'll have a rain event. Just recently, you see this high clearance vehicle sitting behind us. Myself and 2 other officers were called out this past Friday to go to Leland because they had about a 9-inch rain band that sat over Leland Friday morning. And when we woke up and came out, I heard Leland officers going call to call, and they had, like, I believe 15 to 30 calls at one time pending where people were trapped in water and they could not be reached. So this vehicle sitting out here was something that the manager before asked me to try to get, because even our Southport Fire Department in Florence, the fire vehicles and stuff, they were limited on what they can reach, boats and that kind of thing. And that's a free vehicle through the Law Enforcement Support Services program, for the LESS program. So that vehicle didn't cost us anything other than just to transport it here. And of course, we had to paint it. They require you to paint it. It was a military vehicle, but it's in great shape. We can reach a lot of folks. It's a personnel carrier. So this was just used Friday. We were there from about 10 to about 5, so we were able to help a lot of folks and run some missions. But water is very dangerous. I was surprised at the people that were driving through water. 133, if you head north, a lot of times will flood, and people will drive through water. I mean, we were having to get kids and things out. So be very, very mindful of that. Do not get out in the water. Now, we see a lot of water events here in Southport anyway. You know, our flooding that we have from our king tides and our high tides. So, of course, that's a very familiar picture to a lot of people. But after the storm, the police department is really more active than we are before. There's a lot of preparation that we do ahead of time. But afterwards is when we go out and we assist with citywide damage assessments. We determine hazards, flooded roads, down lines, trees. We help our fire department go out and do that as well, update all of our staff members. We man the EOC conference calls and monitor statewide and local events. We see where we need road closures, and if it's bad enough and we need to close the city, we actually have a plan where we close the city off and we would let people back in. You make sure you have to have your city ID, so we'll talk about that in just a second. And again, we continue to manage our daily operations. So if we were to issue evacuation where we're requesting you to leave, we would ask you to take something with you. We don't have like a re-entry sticker like some cities have. They used to do that years ago, but Southport has never done that in quite some time. But we need you to carry something with you that's got your address on. Of course, your ID you have, but if you have a light bill, something that you have that's got your physical address, because a lot of times we're going to close the city off, and it's not just because of the sheer damage, but a lot of times you'll be surprised at the outside vendors that will come in from other states, and they'll be sitting outside of these areas, and they'll be coming in, knocking on your door, wanting to cut a tree limb, and they'll be wanting to do all this work, and some of that's a scam, and they you know, it's a lot of harm that they can do. And we saw that, unfortunately, during Florence as well. When I was with the sheriff's office, we had a lot of outside vendors coming in. The city already has a plan, a mitigation plan that they already have. They just voted on, I believe, at the last meeting. We already have all that lined up through Public Works about who's going to come in. But you would be surprised at the people that will rush right into these areas, and they'll start wanting to do things for you, and they'll take advantage of you. So closing the city is something that's very important, not only to check for hazards and down power lines, but it's also to protect you in your homes and your livelihood. So we don't want you to get out in water. We have a lot of trees, beautiful trees in Southport, but unfortunately, as the manager mentioned, she's had experience where trees freeze. We have that here seldom, but a lot of times these winds will break these frail trees. So those trees bring power lines and a lot of hazards that you don't see. And we've seen that here at the fire department. We certainly don't want you to have to take a ride in one of those vehicles that just rushed away because you were energized by a down line. So after the storm, what do you do? I've kind of talked to you a little bit about what the police department does, and I'm kind of breezing through this, and I apologize if I'm talking fast, but I know I don't want to bore you with a lot of details. But after the storm, something that's very important, you've already heard me say it, please do not get out. A lot of people want to get out and drive, and let's go see what happened. Let's go see if the waterfront is there. Our favorite Pelican is down here at the Oliver's waiting. Please, as a law enforcement officer, you always hear me say, please remain indoors, remain home. I know you're bored and you want to get out. If you have social media, that's something we started doing years back at the sheriff's office. We try to post pictures to let you see. And, you know, if you get on there and say, oh, Leonard Street's flooded, we'll try to post a picture with that so you can actually see it. A lot of people love our waterfront. I'm the first one when I go out of town. I drive by here to make sure it's still here like it's going to go somewhere. But we try to post videos of what that looks like and pictures just to kind of ease your mind a little bit so you can see what your town looks like. We have to take those photographs anyway for our emergency operations system, so we try to get that out. Do not drive unless urgent. Don't drink any tap water. I'm sure Public Works will talk about that, but be careful drinking water. If we've had some breaks in lines, there's a lot of criteria that goes along with that that's above my pay grade, but we want to make sure you don't drink tap water if the lines have been damaged. Stay out of flooded areas. Again, you've heard me say that numerous times. Do not drive through flooded areas. Don't try to walk in those flooded areas until we can clear them. Report any down power lines, anything you see. Walk around your property. Try to see what you can see, what is damaged, and try to get that noted for us, because depending on the severity of the storm, you'll see representatives from the city coming around and they'll want a damage assessment from you. So if you know you have a large limb across your house, go ahead and be noting that down. If your car is damaged, if your backyard is flooded, that's something we ran missions with on Friday in Leland, was going out and checking some homes that had been flooded when the water started receding. So we were talking with residents and looking at some of their damage assessments. And the last thing is to reach out to your neighbors. Be neighborly. Communicate with your neighbors. You may have someone that lives beside you that does not have someone here, so go over and see if they need something to try to check on their well-being. Again, that helps us. We go around and try to communicate with people. You'll see our officers riding the streets, police and fire, public works. Flag us down if you need something. We're here to help you. But again, these are just some of the things that you will need to do. And like I said before, electric vehicles, that was something that surprised me Friday when we set out to start helping people. There were vehicles that were just stuck right in the middle of the road, so of course we want to get out and say, can we help push your vehicles out of the road? Well, I learned that electric vehicles, when I guess the batteries on a lot of them sit low, so they were cutting off, and everything locks up in the vehicle, so we were having to wait on tow trucks. They were very busy Friday. Electric vehicles, they stop right where they are. You can't push them, you can't do anything, so I was shocked to learn that. And again, golf carts. Be careful with electric vehicles, electric things with this flooding, because it can be very, very dangerous. So again, my information is here. I apologize, my number got cut off, but you can look on our website. We're a very friendly, available, approachable department, so if you need something, feel free to reach out to us at any time. Is there any questions that I can try to entertain before I turn it back over to Chief Drew? Yes. We have a Southport Police NC page, so there's a City of Southport page, we have a Southport Police page, a Southport Fire page, but a lot of times when we have storms like this, so we don't confuse so many people, we usually try to run everything through one of those sites because we want to try to get everybody in one direction. So a lot of times Chief Drew is our incident commander, so if the officers are out in the field and they're sending videos and photos up, he'll usually put that out through the Southport Fire page, because traditionally, and Southport also has the Southport Emergency page. So we have 4 different ways that you can get information, but during storms, we try to sum that up and keep it on, in one venue or the other. So, yes.
When you said secure your breakers, what does that mean?
Well, a lot of times outdoor breakers, if you have like garage space or under places under the house, like I said, people are driving and storing vehicles, you may want to secure some of those breakers, because if there's flooding below and you're not aware of it inside, it'll start tripping breakers, and that's just one less thing you can do to prevent a fire. So that's something we've kind of learned over the years. Not all your breakers, because of course we want to keep all of our electricity. Hopefully we won't lose electricity, but early breakers, if you have outbuildings that are on single breakers, that kind of thing, that's what that's kind of geared for. Great question. Anything else? And something else I mentioned, just little silly things, that you can fill your bathtubs up with water if you have. That way you can reserve some water. I know Florence, everybody was devastated when we lost water for quite a bit of time. So if it's a really bad storm, anything you can do to fill up water to have that is great. A lot of people want to buy bottled water, but you can also fill up buckets. If you fill up, sanitize some things, pots in your kitchen, fill those up to keep some water there handy for you, whether it's for you to drink, for the animals or whatever. It's just another thing you can do. Yes, ma'am. Mm-hmm. Right. They will, and the emergency, I know the county has a very large system of folks that are disabled. All of those folks within the respective fire districts across the county, they all reach out to the respective chiefs, and we also help them to check in with all of those folks. So if you call the number they provide you and you're in Southport, they'll reach out to the Emergency Operations Center and say, Chief Drew, we've got 5 people on Park Avenue, and they are wheelchair bound or whatever, and we will go by van, by ambulance, or whatever we can do to try to aid and assist them to get them moved and relocated. Great questions. We want questions. Anything else before I turn it over to Chief Drew? I hope I wasn't too repetitive. Like I said, you'll hear some of these same things again, but we want to try to hit on some of these things. Again, my main message is please don't drive through water. It's very dangerous. So, okay. So again, thank you for being here. My name is Chief Coring. If we can help you, just reach out to us, or you can call 911 if it's an emergency, and we'll come help you out. So, Chief Drew.
Thank you, Chief. Great presentation. We appreciate the partnership that we have with the Southport Police Department. They're always there to help us when we're out with storms, and fire and police work together hand in hand, and as first responder units, and we always appreciate that. So my main presentation tonight, I'm going to be going over 5 tips. It shouldn't take me much more than 5 minutes just to find out some things that you can do to prepare. All of you know that hurricane season begins June the 1st. All my notes are all mixed up now, so but hurricane season begins June the 1st, and there are times that we have had some storms prior to June the 1st, but the main important thing of this Hurricane Expo is for you to be prepared beforehand. There's nothing that you can do to mitigate the strength of a storm except to be prepared. When the storm is brewing and the storm is coming and they're predicting that the storm is en route in this vicinity, you know, that's not time to prepare. The time to prepare is right now. Our Community Relations Department has given you a wonderful toolkit of emergency preparedness information that you can take home with you. I believe this is all digitally formed too and is available on our website. So please take advantage of these kits. Take them home with you, look through them, and it'll help you to be prepared as well. So just 5 little tips that we're going to talk about. We're going to talk about helping citizens be personally prepared. We're going to talk about what you're going to do during a hurricane threat, during a hurricane, and after a hurricane. And then we're going to wrap up our presentation with terms that you should know. So the first tip, helping you to be personally prepared. Hurricanes normally come with a warning period. The city manager was up here earlier and she talked about a tornado. You got very little time to prepare for a tornado. A lot of times we have a week's notice to prepare for a hurricane. So this gives you some preparation time. This gives you some time that you can get some things in line, knowing the steps to take during a disaster. And our program tonight will help you and your family plan and help you to create a basic emergency plan now and not waiting until disaster strikes. So preparing that supply kit, which our emergency preparedness kit is going to have all that information that you're going to need to prepare ahead of time. That's going to help you. Tip number 2, during a hurricane threat, what do I need to do? The first thing that I can press to you, one of the most important things, is that you listen to local authorities for updates. We've seen this so many times over previous storms. People would say, oh, it's just a Category 1 storm. I'm not going to evacuate. If local authorities are telling you you need to evacuate, there's a reason why. We've learned through historical data over the last several years that when a hurricane is coming, a lot of times just because it's a Category 1 doesn't tell us what kind of intensity that it's going to be. If you'll notice Hurricane Florence, how many of you were here for Hurricane Florence? That hit us at a Category 1 storm. But what we were not prepared for was that it was such a slow-moving storm that it came over top of Southport and it dumped 20-some inches of rain, which we were not prepared for the long periods of rain that we were going to have. It took our water system down, which was a challenge that we had not seen in previous hurricanes that were worse intensity. We had Category 2s, Category 3s that came and didn't bother our water system. But now we have a Category 1 storm that comes in, and because of its longevity of staying here day after day and dumping rain, it compromised our water system. It compromised a lot of our infrastructure, our roads, our bridges, things like that begin to go down, and it really hindered us. So we were hindered from getting access to certain communities because they were completely cut off. There were places in our fire district that were cut off as islands. There was one way in, one way out. And you know what? Because of the rain, it collapsed roads and we could not get to those people. So we had issued mandatory evacuations prior to this storm coming, and a lot of people didn't heed to what the local authorities were saying. So they got caught in a bad predicament. There were people calling the EOC. I was at the EOC 9 days. I never left the fire station except to go on calls. Never went home 9 days. There were people that were starting to call us saying, we're hungry. We don't have anything to eat. We didn't prepare for this long time. We didn't prepare for 9 days. So we had to start setting up humanitarian efforts. We had to contact churches and charitable organizations to start setting up food and start to feed people and get food taken to these places that were literally islands in our district. So if local authorities tell you to evacuate, listen to what they say. There's a reason why that they're telling you that. Prepare your home for the storm. Our planning services department's going to come, and they're going to talk some about some of those things in the presentation today. But prepare your home for the storm. I caught the last part of Chief Coring's presentation. He's talking about breakers and things like that, boarding up windows, making sure that it's secure, your lawn furniture is moved, anything that can be picked up by the wind outside is taken and secured. Secure outdoor objects, bring them inside, stock up on food and water in case you must take shelter in your home. It's important to fuel up your car in case an evacuation order is given. And then a lot of times our local gas stations do not have generators, and if the power goes out, you're not going to be able to get fuel from them. So make sure your vehicles are fueled up. Turn off utilities at the main valves or switches if instructed by authorities to do. So those are just some things that you can prepare for during the hurricane threat. All right, tip number 3, during a hurricane, if you decide to ride it out. You know, we've had people that have contacted us. We've issued mandatory evacuations. We cannot make you leave your home. We can tell you to leave your home, but if you decide to stay, we can't do anything. But we can make you stay on your property. If the mayor issues an executive order through a state of emergency and he issues a curfew, we can tell you you have to stay on your property, and you can get in trouble if you go off that property. So during a hurricane, you need to understand to make sure to keep communication with what's going on. If at risk of being impacted by a hurricane, don't wait until the last 24 hours to act. If an evacuation order was declared, emergency services will not be able to access you once winds are hurricane force. That's something a lot of people don't understand. One of the last hurricanes, we had a very large storm surge, and we had people that were staying in a vacation home in the Yacht Basin area, and water started coming in the house at high tide, and they had some children there. They called into the EOC, and they wanted us to come and rescue them. We were under hurricane force winds at that time, and we had to suspend all of our operations of going out. So we were grounded at the fire station. We had mothers on the phone at the EOC crying about their children being in the house, but there was nothing we could do. You know, it touched us, and it put a lump in my throat when I was talking to them because water's rising in the house, but they should have listened to the evacuation order, and they should have gotten out of where they were. So there is a time that we're not going to be able to respond to you. That's another reason why if we give an evacuation order, you need to listen to what the authorities are saying. Take refuge on the ground floor in a small central room or hallway. When the winds are bad, if you decide to stay, keep away from windows and glass doors. Close all inside doors, brace all outside doors, and monitor your local news and media outlets for updates. So those are things, if you do happen to stay, just understand we may not be able to get to you if there's hurricane force winds. Tip number 4, after a hurricane, to minimize your risk, remain in a secure location until you're notified it's safe to leave. That's another important piece of information. After a hurricane, you're going to have electric lines down. Utilities are going to be compromised. The last several hurricanes that we've had such a storm surge that we've had LP gas tanks that were leaking, that were floating in the Yacht Basin. We've had electric lines that were down across the road. We've had trees that were not secure. You don't need to be out on the roads traveling during this. We don't want people out sightseeing and looking at damage until all of these things are secured and it's safe for you to be able to get out and travel around. So listen to what the local authorities are saying. Don't drive unless necessary. Listen for water advisories. Chief Coring's already hit about driving through water. Don't drive through water. People don't realize how powerful water is and how it can pick your vehicle up. It was during Hurricane Florence. They were trying to get some folks from Oak Island back into Southport, and on Long Beach Road, the road was flooded. They began to drive through the flooded water, and it picked the car up, turned it over on its side, had a 95-year-old lady in the car. So we got there in the nick of time to get them out of the car and get them to safety. But it can easily pick your car up and turn it over. So please make sure you're watching for water advisories. Stay away from ponding, pooling water until potential flooding is past. Report down power lines, broken gas and sewer mains to officials. Inspect your home for damages and report damages to your insurance agency. These are things that you can do after the storm. Proactive steps and safety can limit your vulnerabilities and your risks. Our main thing is to keep you safe. We've got to make sure that we are on top of keeping you safe, keeping our people safe, so that everybody survives the storm. Tip number 5, just some terms that you can listen out for and that you can note. During a hurricane, these terms will help you. A hurricane watch, hurricane conditions are possible within 36 hours. If our area is under a hurricane watch, that means that we can have hurricane conditions within 36 hours. A hurricane warning, a hurricane is expected within 24 hours. Storm surge is a dome of water pushed ashore by hurricane force winds. We've certainly seen our share of storm surges that just several hurricanes ago, all in front of the community building was compromised. The sidewalk, the street, down by Lord and Bay Street, we've seen such erosion from storm surges there. The tornado that we experienced in one of the last hurricanes that destroyed and damaged the marina. So these are some things that just to familiarize you with some storm or with some terms. Storm tide, a storm surge combined with a normal tide. It's going to be higher than normal. A voluntary evacuation, authorities are asking you to leave, and a mandatory evacuation, authorities are ordering you to leave. And you, like I said before, you cannot be made to leave your property, but you can be restricted to your property under certain circumstances. Okay? All right, so that's going to cover my presentation today about are you ready, are you prepared for storm season. The main important takeaway from my presentation today is this, that you are prepared before the storm hits. And that's what we want all of you to be able to do. You can always call or email me. My cell number, 910-477-2365, and my city email, cdrew@cityofsouthport.com. You can access us through the city website. You can call City Hall. And if you need any help preparing, if you have questions, concerns, or comments, don't ever fail to reach out to us, and we can always help you. Questions today before I turn it over. I believe Tom Stanley from our Public Services Department is coming next. Who has a question? Anybody? Yes, ma'am. Wait for that microphone because they got to get you on Facebook Live.
Okay. Just curious, how far in advance do you make that a call for an evacuation? Because I saw different time frames and voluntary, but when would you generally put that evacuation call out there?
Well, it all depends on the storm normally. You know how the predictions are of when the storm is coming. We have a tendency, we normally try to follow the county's recommendations when the county decides to call for an evacuation order. We are constantly meeting with the county. We have conference calls with county and state officials. So we're always going by what they're telling us to. And sometimes Southport has been the first one to make an evacuation order. There's other times that we followed other municipalities. So we're talking with our resources, we're talking with the mayor, the city manager, our department heads. We have daily meetings when there's a threat of a storm. So we're taking counsel from them. So we don't really have a set order, but depending on the intensity of the storm, depending on what the predictions are, that's how we decide what we're going to do. Yes, sir.
When you say evacuate, where do you go? I mean, I know it depends which, where's the storm moving, where's it going, but.
And that's the main thing that you really need to look at, because I have seen people leave Southport before and go to Charlotte, and Charlotte have worse effects of a storm than what we did in Southport. So you've got to look at the track of the storm, what the forecasters are saying. You know that's not always going to be 100%. But that's something that you need to take in advance, an advance check and notice. Look at where they're forecasting the storm to go. How far inland are they forecasting? Is it going to go on up the coast, or will it go inland? So that's going to tell you which way you need to head for an evacuation. Other questions? Okay. All right. Since there's no other questions, and we're going to still have questions and answers at the end of the presentation today, we're going to have our Public Services Director, Tom Stanley, is going to come at this time. Thank you, Tom.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, sir.
Yes, sir. Do you have a presentation?
Yeah, I got two little simple little slides.
And then I'll give it to you.
It's just two little pictures. Good evening. As Chief Drew said, I'm Tom Stanley. I'm the Public Service Director for Southport. I've been Public Service Director for about 2 years. I've been working for Southport for 9, and I've been in working every hurricane since then. First off, before I forget, let's talk about utilities first. Chief Coring covered some of it as far as utilities. Before the storm, myself and my department are getting the utilities, I won't say standby ready, meaning I don't really do anything with water because we get our water from Brunswick County. So they're dealing with the treatment side and their pumping station sides and their tower sides. For my department, it's normally making sure our wastewater collection system is good to go for what it is. And when I say that is each lift station has a backup generator. So we're making sure that everything's operational, which we do regularly, but before hurricanes, we definitely make sure operational. We make sure they're all fueled up, ready to go for when and if the power does go out, you do not lose service. In the event of losing service, trust me, you will know. As far as water goes, Chief Corn mentioned a boil water. Do not use your water unless it's always beneficial to retain water, whether you buy it gallons from the store, fill up your tub, your washing machine, your pots and pans, just for contingency. Redundancy is great. Most of the time, except for Hurricane Florence, was the first time that I can remember, and I'm a native as well, of really losing water. That was due to some main breaks with Brunswick County. Southport, we've been pretty lucky, but in the event of losing water, there will be a boil water notice, most likely issued by Brunswick County. We follow Brunswick County's guidance on that because we're a purchase system. But other than that, as long as your water is operational, pretty safe to drink, but if it starts looking funny, that's why you're holding water. What my department does before the storms, as far as the city-wide goes, aside from making sure our utilities are operational, and I'll let Ellie Pittenger speak on our electrical system. Aside from utilities, my departments are going around securing things in the city. You'll notice that trash cans start disappearing, swings start disappearing. Anything that could fly away or be lost starts disappearing. Things we don't expect, for instance, Hurricane Isaias. Some of our planted benches from the waterfront were 2 blocks back, which leads to my next conversation. Anything you have at your house, Chief Corn and Drew both mentioned, picnic tables, lawn furniture, grills, umbrellas, secure them. Bicycles, you buy bicycles, whatever you have outside, secure them so that they don't become flying debris. During the storm, you'll see these guys out all the time, the fire department, police department, but my department's out as well. I prefer, and I've told Chief Drew and Chief Treadway, call me for trees. Let me deal with the trees. My department's out here. We have big machines, let the fire department, although they're out there all the time, let them deal with the emergencies. Let me get your streets cleaned while we can. But we do work collectively. I remember Hurricane Isaias. My guys now are at 3:30 in the morning, turn the corner at West Street, and there was the fire department as well. They were cutting trees as well. So it's a collective effort. You know, all three departments, we try and work together to make sure you guys can traverse during the storm if you have to, hopefully not, and after the storm. During the storm, my guys are out here, as long as it's safe, keeping your streets open. Our main objective is to keep the streets open to the emergency centers, to the fire department, to the hospital. We're out there with our backhoes, skid steers, chainsaws, trucks, while we can, pushing streets, you know, even at times when we're not supposed to be out here. You know, we try to make sure, as long as it's relatively safe, that you guys, or really the emergency services, can get around and not be halted, because just that one tree being in the way and these guys having to take a block around to turn around to get to you, I mean, them seconds matter. So we all try to work together along with the fire department to keep the streets open. After the hurricane, your debris, this is when, immediately after the hurricane, once everything stopped, my guys and myself are out there pushing every city street. Doesn't matter what city street it is, how big or small it is, we're on there with a piece of equipment. Our goal is to push things to the side, make sure all roads are open, which is why you need to make sure your picnic tables and everything is secured, because if it's in the middle of the road, I'm not going to promise you we're going to set it delicately to the side. We're going to get that road open. So if it means your picnic table has to go, I apologize for that. I haven't destroyed one yet. But when it's time to start doing the cleanup, hurricane debris cleanup is for exactly that. It's for cleaning the debris that's fallen during the hurricane. It's not for what some people do. Hey, it's time to start cutting trees down that are perfectly fine because we want to get rid of them. It happens, but the main thing is when you clean up your yard, you know, the city typically does, if it's a declared storm, we do a hurricane debris cleanup. Typically, contractors come in. We have a disaster debris contractor that comes in and does this. Like I said, our goal is to push it clean from the streets. Your goal will be to clean up your yard, and at this point, you can set it out by the right-of-way and in separate piles. And I have slides, but I'm probably not going to go by them. You have vegetative debris and construction debris, demolition debris. Vegetative debris is exactly what it says. It's debris that falls during a hurricane. Your shrubs, brushes, you may have a tree, you may have limbs that fall down. Get them out to the curbside. Construction debris, if your deck falls apart. If the picnic table that you didn't secure flips over and busts into 50 pieces, now it's time to take it out by the curb. It'll most likely be picked up, you know, if the disaster is declared. When you set it out by the curb, set it in two separate piles. You have your vegetative debris and your construction. It could be your mattress, it could be your sheetrock walls, it could be your shingles, it could be your picnic table. Set those to the side. Your grill that we pushed to the side because it was in the middle of the road, that goes into construction debris. Your other pile would be for your white goods. If you get flooded, your refrigerator, your stove, you know, those type of items, your washer and dryer, those go to a separate pile. So basically 3 separate piles. In the previous slide, there were a few extra piles like TVs and stuff, hazardous waste. Our debris pickup won't pick up hazardous waste. You can typically take that to the landfill on your own. So much to cover, so much to cover. And I always bring notes, but you know, I never read notes. It's not my nature. When you place things out on the curb, a lot of people just place them where they can. Do not place them on your, like, close to your power box. You know, a power pedestal, or your water meter, or your sewer clean out, or a fire hydrant. Try and keep it 3 feet away from those if you can. Under from any overhanging trees, because debris trucks with big cherry pickers, they can't always come by, they can't grab those. And there'll be a pile left, but your whole road has been picked up, but yours hasn't. Maybe you need to check and see where you put it. Also, don't freak out. Don't start calling every elected official. Give it a little time, be a little patient, because typically what will happen is once the initial pickup is done, a lot of times they go get to places they haven't got. They may need to bring a skid steer to push it to the side. Do things get forgotten? Yes, but a lot of times there's a reason why it's forgotten. If you mix your debris together, if you mix your debris with your C&D, your mattress, or your wood, the debris pickers are not going to separate that. They're going to leave it sitting right there. That's when I'll get called to get the guys out there and pick it up, and it just takes us away from other things. I really don't have much else to say. The two chiefs covered a lot. They've been through more storms as far as working them than I have. I've been through just as many as them, just they've worked a whole lot more than I. I will say that what the city does not do is we do not pick up, we cannot pick up any debris in like private neighborhoods, private streets. When I say cannot, I don't mean cannot, I mean that during a storm to where we're expected to get FEMA reimbursement, we are not allowed to pick up any debris from private neighborhoods. That would be where the city does not maintain the streets. It would be the hammocks, the cottages at Price's Creek, Cades Cove, and Old Southport. I believe those are 4 areas that are not city streets. In times like that, what we've allowed them to do, even though it's a little bit of a hassle for them, but is to get them out to a city-owned right-of-way. We've done that with Price's Creek, the hammocks, and not hammocks, Price's Creek, Old Southport, and Cades Cove. That way we were able to pick it up, and because it was on a city street, we were able to seek reimbursement for that, for the time the contractors put into that. I believe I've probably covered everything that I have on my notes that I'm not reading. So is there any questions from you guys you may have for me? Debris or utilities related? So with that being said or not said, I'm going to turn it over to Ellie Pittenger. He's our electrical superintendent. He can tell you about the electricities and how to prepare the electricities and what happens after the storm.
Thank you, Director Stanley. As mentioned, I'm Electrical Superintendent Ellie Pittenger. I've been through quite a few storms here. I do have some pamphlets on the back table. There's some generator safety on one side and basic electrical storm safety on the other side. I want to give you a little scenario. So you and your pals, kids are away in college. You and your pals, you decided to stay. They said on the radio, evacuate, and you're like, hurricane party. And so everybody's winding down, and you've heard stuff crash into the house, all night long, and stuff hit the roof. Bang, bang, boom. Wow, this is really bad. Got a couple of windows broken. And so then about 1 or 2 o'clock in the morning, it gets quiet. Man, I'm going to come check this out. It's okay now because there ain't no wind. Next thing you know, you're talking to St. Peter, and you say, St. Peter, what happened? St. Peter says, you can't see a downed power line in the dark. You can't do it. And pardon my little bit of theatrics with that story, but you really can't. A power line can be swaying from a tree and knock you in the shoulder. I had a personal experience working with the city 2 or 3 years ago, and it wasn't even a storm. A tree broke and took a power line down with it, and I wouldn't let anybody around it. And as soon as my electric crew got there and said, is that thing live? Because it wasn't dancing around, it wasn't sparking, wasn't doing all those things that they show in the Hollywood movies. It was just laying there. You couldn't even hear a hum coming out of it. Touched it with whatever that stick was before they turned it off on the transformer. Yep, that's live. And I stayed there until they got there, and a couple of friends of mine saying, well, it's clear, you got some tape and some cones around. Why don't you leave? because of that right there, and the school bus came up. Some kids got out. So no, I wasn't going to leave the scene. But anyway, yeah, an electric line, you can't see them in the dark. And they don't always dance around and start sparking and do, you know, that Hollywood movie stuff. Now, they can, but they don't always. And like I said, you know, you go out in the dark after a storm, there could be a line whipping around and get you on the shoulder and knock you down. So just wait until the light of day. You know, look out the windows. And be careful. And, you know, some of us say, well, I got this thing I saw off TV. It's like 10,000 candle watts. Light up the world. You know, it's your business. But stay inside until it's light of day. And they'll come by and they'll tell you when it's safe. Another things I want to touch base on is your cell phone. Keep it charged up. If you know a storm's going to hit, keep your phone plugged in, and that way, if the power does go off, you got 100%. But don't forget to unplug it, because it can discharge through that power cable that's sitting on the wall and not plugged into anything. So don't forget to unplug it. And then you have Aunt Bessie and Uncle John and Cousin Bill and the guys from the football team in school. They all want to call you, hey, you guys all right? Yeah, and you've talked to everybody, and they know you're all safe, and now, well, my phone just died. So keep your phone, you know, you're going to want to reach out to these people. Hey, we're okay. Make a call, make maybe a call an hour. The cell phone towers, they have generators usually to last 3 days, and after the generators run out, they usually have battery power that'll last another couple of days. So as long as you're able to keep your phone going, you'll be in contact. That's about all I have with lines. And we will see a day not too long from now where we won't have any above ground power lines, because the city is concentrating on getting everything underground. So all that being said, generators, generator safety. If you have a portable generator, you got to keep it 20 feet from the house. If you have a portable generator, those things aren't designed to run your house during the storm. They're designed to be hooked up to your refrigerator, a couple of lights, the radios, whatever, after the storm, so you don't lose your food. Some basic things, don't run out 5 minutes before you think the generator is going to stop to refuel it. Even if the wind's not kicking up, even if it is raining, you can still get burned. Am I right? Gasoline touches a part on a hot generator, it can flare up. And that's gasoline that's going to... unless you got the whole house generator on a transfer switch, or you have a manual transfer switch, like over at Mama's house, we have a couple of, it's kind of like a dead man switch. You have to turn the breaker off and then slide this metal plate over and turn the generator breaker on. And that way you can't be on the line and the generator at the same time, and you won't backfeed. And that's another thing you don't want to do with generators, is backfeed if they're out there trying to fix everybody else's power lines and they got power coming down the line and you zap alignment. Not good. Not good. And that's about all I have. Other reasons you don't want to run a generator: you don't want to run it indoors, obviously, for carbon monoxide poisoning, fire hazards, and just things like that. So that's about all I got, really. I'll take any questions.
Is it best to turn your electricity off at the fuse box or outside?
I would go to the fuse box. I wouldn't go outside, especially if it's already storming. Well, with that, thank you very much. I'm not sure who's next.
Our Assistant City Manager, Dorothy Dutton, will come and do her presentation, followed by Kate Marshall, our Animal Protective Services.
Hello, everyone. Thank you for coming out this evening. This will be my second third hurricane season here. We had Hurricane Ian last year, but thank goodness nothing major happened. And my presentation is regarding records. Let's see. So if you're like me, I have a huge file box with everything from the last 43 years of my life in there. And so it's important to kind of narrow down what is important to take with you when you have to evacuate. So there's 3 tips that I found that were most common online, mostly the FEMA websites and sources we have. Try to back up all your records electronically if you have the capacity to do so, either on the cloud, a flash drive, or just send them all to your email address. That way you'll have them with you. You can also purchase a safe box. Typically those are water resistant and fire resistant. You can also rent a safety deposit box at your postal service. And it's also kind of wise if you want to create a go bag. This was mentioned in a few other presentations, but if you have any extremely important documents that you want to hang on to or take with you, you could prepackage them in a bag. That way you're ready to go with your essentials. So what are critical documents that you'd want to take? There's household identification, including like birth certificates, marriage licenses, adoption records, social security cards, passports, financial and legal documents, mortgage records, lease agreements, your vehicle information, child support documents, information about your insurance policies, medical records. If you have a copy of your health records from your physicians, you could take that whole pack if you could. A medical power of attorney, VA health benefits. Living will is also very important, any disability documentation you might have. And then a list of all your contacts. So family members that you want to keep in touch with but don't necessarily have their number memorized. Employers, schools, religious institutions, social services providers, and then any HOA information or homeowners association information you might need. And then personal records would be personal mementos, family photos, or possessions with monetary value. So grandmother's estate jewelry, things like that. Things that are sentimental also, but might not have any monetary value. So just to throw a couple of examples in there, the safes that you have, the water and fire resistant, there's a couple of examples. Thumb drive, safety deposit box, things like that. My presentation is very short, so if you have any questions, I'll be happy to answer them for you. I guess Ms. Kate Marshall is next with Animal Protective Services.
Hi, my name's Kate Marshall. I'm the Animal Protective Services Officer for the City of Southport, and I'm going to give you some helpful tips on preparing disaster preparedness for your pets. We all know after what happened with Hurricane Katrina, how the pets came into the forefront of realizing for evacuation and lack of people leaving and all that happened, that it's very important to be prepared with your pets. And everyone's told you this, and I'm just going to beat the dead horse. So get ready now while you have the time. You need to prepare, you need to plan, and you need to practice. So preparing for your pets takes a little bit more homework. You have to make sure you get your veterinarian records up to date, check to see if their vaccinations are current. And if they're not, you need to make your appointment and get in now, because waiting a few days before you probably can't, or they may be closed as well. Another very important thing is rabies tags and certificates. If you're going to be evacuating, if you're going to show up at an evacuation center, you're going to need your rabies tag on the collars. You're going to need it either with you or your rabies certificate. If you've misplaced it while you're preparing, you find you can't find it, contact your veterinarian, and you can always get a duplicate tag and a duplicate certificate. And you can also take pictures of it and have that on your phone. That's another great idea. You want to microchip your pet. I'm sorry, I'm going to go back. Microchip in scenarios when you're evacuating and driving, if you stop at a rest stop, your pet gets away from you, that's not really a good time. You might not be able to find them. A microchip is a great guarantee. Whoever picks that up is going to check that chip and be able to get your pet home. Another important thing, though, is in your microchip records, if you've moved recently, go into your microchip database, find out who it was that issued the chip. You can always contact me if you don't know. We can do a chip check and find out what company it is. You need to go in there and make sure all that data is up to date. Those records don't follow you. That information doesn't follow you from vet to vet, and that's the only way they're going to be able to get your current information. And a great tip is any written prescriptions for any medications your pet might be on. Again, if you're out of town and you run out of a pet's medication, your vet might be closed. They may have evacuated as well, or they don't have power. So if you have a written prescription, you can take that to a pharmacy and you can get that prescription filled. Copy of the medical records. And another good tip is find out ways to reduce stress. There are certain things you can do. It's good in the summertime anyway. We've got fireworks, we've got thunderstorms. A lot of pets are very reactive to the noise and the stress. There's ways that you can do it naturally. There's also some medications that are general mild sedatives. What you don't want to do is have a howling cat in your car for 8 hours. So think about that beforehand. Make an emergency supply kit. I've got a great tips back there. There's little grab-and-go bags that's got copies of all medical or evacuation supply kits, food, water, medication. You want to travel with the food your pet's used to eating because you don't want upset stomachs and all that GI problem if you're trying to travel in a car. Have your carriers and your kennels ready to go. You may have gotten a carrier when your dog was a puppy or your cat was a kitten, and you go to pull it out of the garage, and Fluffy now weighs 20 pounds more and he won't fit. So you need to have one that they'll fit in. Make sure it has identification on it and it's clean and ready to go. And also a pet information sheet with photos is another great thing to have. That's also included in the little grab-and-go bag. Pet hurricane checklists, just like for your home. These are things you'll need to take with you for your pet. Have all that stuff ready. If there's a special food they're on, maybe get an extra couple weeks supply to have that with you. You might not be able to find it at a pet store. That's an example of an owner information sheet. That's Augie, that's my dog. Pictures of your pet. Another thing good if you take pictures with you and your pet. So if anybody says, hey, is that your dog? Yay, this is my dog. Just information. This is a great thing to have if you're evacuating and you can't make it out of town and you end up at a shelter here in the county. This is all the information you're going to need when you go to check in with your pet. They're going to ask you all these questions. So if you have it on this document, you don't need to fill that paper out, just hand it to them, and they'll attach that with the information for your dog or cat. There's a great, this just came out from DocuPet. DocuPet is who the city of Southport uses for pet licensing. This is a little perk that they just created. It's an extra cost, but it's a wallet ID card, and it's also in a digital format, so you can have it on your phone. And again, all your emergency contact information is on there, and it's all in one place. The little QR code saves you some time. You need to make a plan. You've heard that all afternoon. And just remember, if you evacuate your home, do not leave your pet behind. It's not a good idea. You might think during Hurricane Florence, we had a few people think, well, I'm going to be gone for 2 days. I'm going to leave my cat behind, put a bunch of food out, they'll be fine. Well, 2 days turned into 2 weeks. And we got the phone call. The lady's desperate. Her neighbors had flooded, so they evacuated. There was no one around that could feed the cats, so we were able to, with our partners, the police and fire, get into the house and bring food and supplies to feed the cat. So even reptiles, any exotic pets you have, they're not going to survive without you. And if we find out that's happened, that's abandonment at this point. So you need to make arrangements for that. How are you going to get there? Is your car big enough to hold all your pet carriers and your kids and your, hopefully you won't leave one of them behind. Know what shelter you're going to go to and which ones accept pets. Which hotels accept pets? Will they take my snake? Will they let me in with my ferret? Or my bird? You got to make sure you know all that ahead of time. And if you can, have an evacuation buddy. That actually is a great idea. I don't know if anyone here has horses. Evacuation buddies are great if you're following behind with somebody that's got a trailer. That's always good to keep an eye on. Evacuation buddies are great. Then you don't have to worry about leaving your animals behind in a hotel room or in your car if you run in to get something to eat. And again, always have a backup plan. So if you're going to evacuate with your pet here in Brunswick County, we are lucky that all of the evacuation shelters in this area are pet friendly. You need to be prepared to, it's called co-sheltering. So when you show up, your pet might not be able to stay with you next to you. It'll be in the same location, maybe just a different building or room. You're going to need to be prepared to take care of your pet. It's not like boarding where you show up and, oh, I'm on evacuation holiday. They're going to take care of it. They just don't have the staff. So you're going to need to go and walk your pet, take care of it, feed it. They'll probably have a schedule for you when you can show up and do that, but that's going to be part of your responsibility. And again, if you take the pet's food with you, what they're used to, that'll help a lot with the GI upset. Make sure your pets are on a leash or in a carrier. You don't want to show up with, Fluffy under your arm because he's going to take off. And that's important when you're going to walk and take care of them. They're going to require them all to be on a leash or in a carrier with their identification. Make sure everything's got identification on it. And again, you're going to need your rabies tag or your certificate with you at the Brunswick County shelters. If you can't show proof of vaccination, they're going to vaccinate your pet for rabies again. If you decide to go to a motel, whichever route you're on, you need to make sure that it is pet friendly. So there was a 2006 FEMA passed the PETS Act. What that did not cover, that was for evacuating and sheltering. It did not cover hotels and motels. They are not required to accept pets during an emergency. And that's a misnomer that's always put out on Facebook during these things. Just because it's on Facebook or the internet doesn't mean it's true. They can refuse, if it's a service animal, they have to let you in, a certified service animal, not emotional support or therapy, but a true service animal. Other than that, it's a hotel's policy whether they'll take pets or not. And again, call ahead of time because, maybe your bird can't go in the room. There's great resources. You can check petfriendlyhotels.net. There's bringfido.com. A lot of times you can call the hotel directly, tell them what's going on, but make sure you have your vaccination records with you because they can refuse you to come in if they're not vaccinated. If you want to stay with a friend or a relative, make sure you call ahead of time to tell them that you're coming. You want to show up at Aunt Sadie's house with your Great Dane and she's got 5 cats. So it may not work. So make sure they know you're coming. Is it okay if you're there? Can I bring my pets? And always have a backup plan because, maybe she decides to evacuate too. So always have a backup plan. Things never go smoothly, especially during an emergency. And again, you need to practice getting your cat in the carrier. Maybe practice that. Get your tote out, put all your pet supplies in it. Will it all fit in there? Will all of that stuff fit in your car? Do that ahead of time so you know how to plan and do your Jenga so you know how you can fit everybody in there so you don't leave your husband behind or your wife or your kids. So. But make sure you prepare and practice, plan and practice, and practice. Stay informed. You've heard that from Chief Drew throughout this. Stay informed, know when the hurricane's coming, know when to act, and don't rely, again, on the storm category. Say, oh, I'm not going to leave if it's Category 1, if it's Category 2. That's terrible logic. That doesn't work. Listen to emergency personnel and their recommendations. If you need to leave, you need to leave. There's great resources, readynorthcarolina.org. That's something new I just found out. That'll give you evacuation routes. That'll give you storm predictions. There's a ready checklist there. ASPCA's got great tips on disaster preparedness for your pets. CDC's got, again, more information, all of this, aspca.org, all of those. And this is my little APS take on hurricane categories. So they all look pretty bad to me. I don't know. So thank you. Don't forget there's little grab-and-go bags with checklists and pet information. Those are all on the back. If you have any questions about what you need to do or you need help figuring out how to help your pet and get ready for this, you can always call me. So thank you, and stay ready, stay informed, and please stay safe.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Ralph Treadway. I'm the Battalion Chief of Operations at the Southport Fire Department. And pretty much everybody's told you what to do and what not to do. So I'm just going to go over a little bit of our equipment that you'll see outside that we encourage everybody after this is over with to go outside and look at. So I'm going to be covering some of our water rescue equipment and our EMS trucks. And this here is just an overview of what we have. This is a high water rescue truck that we use. As you can see, it has a ventilated system on the front of the hood up there. The transmission and axles get the air through there, so you drive through water, it doesn't mess anything up. We have a surfboard, backboard. We're capable with going into high water. It has a 10,000-pound winch mounted on the front bumper. And we also have AED, life jackets, and helmets inside that truck. It was also donated. We have tow ropes, rescue straps, and anything else that's needed in there. Here you'll see our rigid hull inflatable. It's a 16-foot boat. It's being pulled with one of our Tahoes, which is my Tahoe there. It has a 60 horsepower Yamaha engine that can hold up to 10 people. We can use that. We also use it for the city after the hurricane to do any kind of damage assessment or anything we need to do like that on docks and piers. There's just another picture of it. This is a UTV 389 that we have that's located over at Caswell. We also have one here in the city. You see our small boat back there that's used for surf launching. This is another pickup truck we have over here with water rescue equipment. We have our wet suits, our dry suits, rescue helmets, PFDs, life jackets, pulling our jet ski. This is a jet ski that we have that's located at Caswell, which was donated as well. As you see it, it's right there on a beach buggy that we can use for launching it on the beach. But within 5 minutes, we can have it back on the actual trailer and have it ready to deploy anywhere in the county that it's needed or in the city. This is our little rigid hull inflatable. It's a 10-foot. It'll hold 10 people. It's got a 15 horsepower engine on it. It's located over at Caswell. If you notice the handles on the side, it can be picked up by about 4 people and deployed in any body of water that it's needed in. And this is just an overview of everything together. Our EMS division. This right here is one of our 2 ambulances that we got from Mint Hill Fire Department. They're both Dodge Ram 5500 trucks. One of them is 4-wheel drive. It's a 2017, 2018 model. And they are all staffed at advanced level of care. We've had one 2012 GMC 4500 ambulance, which is also at an advanced level care. that we have, and hopefully we don't have to use any of these to come get y'all during the hurricane or afterwards. But that is the conclusion of my presentation this afternoon. If you have any questions, I'll be available afterwards, and at this time, Captain Hommock can come up and answer any of the other questions or do his EMS presentation.
Thanks. I would stand behind the podium, but you won't be able to see me at all, so I'm going to stand in front of it instead. I don't have any slides prepared like that because I don't want to take up too much of your time. If you have any questions about what we got, what goes on with our ambulances when it comes to transports, even if it comes with like coming to your home for people who have special needs, things like that, what we can do, what we can handle, I'm more than welcome to take any of those questions now. Otherwise, I'm going to go ahead and start talking about like our care facilities and how we kind of mitigate that stuff, or how we're going to do that. So, any questions? Anyone at all? None? Cool, great. All right, sounds good. So here I have a Brunswick County resource. Brunswick County website has you have different numbers and facilities and things you can call that help for convalescent. That you can register. You can like you can with your grandmother or whoever you might have that's on a wheelchair. They have a lot of resources here. They'll even place you into care facilities. They'll even notate you so when a hurricane does come by, they know they can bring the DHHS trucks and vans and big buses that come down from like Raleigh. They can be transported to areas that are not covered in water. Just so you know. So I went and called Liberty, and I talked with oh my gosh, the other one. Terabella, sorry. And so in my conversations with them, I found out that really they have no true plan. So what I did with during my time is I actually wrote up a plan that I'm currently working on that we're going to go over. Basically, most of the conversations were, we need to work on that. So when can we schedule a meeting? So we're gonna end up doing that. But in that process, I went ahead and wrote up some just evaluation plans, just pre-incident evaluation preparedness for them, and a kind of a protocol base. So that we have somewhere to start with. As of right now, what they're doing, and I apologize for yelling at you every so often. As of right now, what we're doing, like Terabella, in resource base, if you have a family member that's in one of those care facilities, Terabella, they have 2 generators that are just portable generators. They have a contract outside of that they bring down bigger generators to facilitate the entire facility. I very quickly made them aware that's not a good plan, because if there's a hurricane or there's flooding, that's not going to help you at that point in time. So they're actually looking into purchasing a new actual full-size generator that's always there, like a diesel engine generator. Hopefully that will take care of that issue. They also chartered with their just different buses to get all their care facilities out. When Florence came through, both facilities fully evacuated. They have, just like Terabella has got two units up in the Wilmington area. They actually distribute between the two with Whiteville and New Wilmington. They distribute all their people through those 2 facilities. Unless it's a bigger incident, then they send them all up to Raleigh, where there's one in Raleigh where there's a bigger area. So the North Carolina DHHS has a big, huge fleet of vans and buses that are actually designed for stretchers, and they can fit like 30-some people on there. And they can transport like people who are bedridden, who are unable to get around to those areas. I also got their population. We as the fire department have to worry about generally when Terabella is 65 residents that could they're at full capacity. That's not including their staff, night and day, which changes. And also Liberty does have 95 the ability for 95 people. They said they generally stick around 60-ish. They don't try to go up to full capacity because it becomes a headache for them in staffing as well. They can't do all that. But again, they also have care facilities outside in Wilmington as well, and in Chapel Hill that they distribute all their patients to if the need be. They generally will always try to shelter in place. That's the goal. They don't want to have to move these people or put them out if they don't have to. So the goal is to just keep them in there as best as possible. Now, Liberty does have a full-size generator that can power the entire station, and it's not an issue for them to stay in that area. But I will say during Florence, the lady told me that all of Liberty flooded when Florence came through, because that whole area right there next to the hospital is just a big old fishbowl. So if there's too much water, it will definitely flood. So they will look into doing that. So both Danielle Peters, who is their emergency operations manager for them, and Ann Worley, who is the emergency operations planner for Terabella, we're going to get together and try to figure out this plan so that we can have a better preparedness. I'm going to go over that real quick with the plan it would entitle, and you're more than welcome to look at it, and I'll make you copies of it if you need be. I'm going to just make a pre-evacuation preparedness plan. So basically, this just establishes an emergency preparedness committee. I can identify evacuation routes to them. Anything that's pretty much what we've already discussed. Develop communication protocol and create emergency supply kits for them as well. That includes just boxes or waterproof boxes with batteries, flashlights, just general needs, MREs if possible. Things that they can sustain themselves for, like Chief has said, 3 days, or both chiefs have said, like 3 days or so at that point in time. So where is it at here? So I'm also going to design, with this I wrote in, there's codes for each thing we do. So a code green for them would be just monitoring the storm, seeing where it's going, how it's going to happen. A code yellow would be actually implementing the evacuation plan. And then code red would be implementing that plan along with fire, EMS, and law, and any other city or outsources of vehicles or whatever we have, DHHS if we have to actually implement the plan further. And that's basically how it will go down. And it's going to be very simple. I don't want to confuse anybody making anything complicated. Anyways, with that being it, so that's hopefully something we're going to get worked on, get finished with. Like I said before, if you have any issues with your own personal family, Brunswick County's got a great adult monitoring resource center they can go to. Just look for adult convalescent centers or care, and they have all sorts of options like day health care. They'll do placement for you, anything you need, and then they will also put you on that list or your loved ones on that list so that we are aware when the time comes. And that's really it for me. I want to keep it nice, short, simple, and sweet, and I don't waste too much of your time here. I will say this. I did a good tip of the trade. I was at Bald Head when Florence came through, and I swam through most of it to get anywhere. One thing that was not stated was a lot of times the sewage areas get distributed or pushed into the system up in the water, so you're walking through a bunch of pool water, and so that's another reason not to go outside and walk around and checking things out, because you're getting into doo-doo water. You don't want to do that. So that's one bad thing. Another thing is, too, when that happens, I'll tell you a nice little story. Story time. So, anyways, I have a buddy. I was working down in Florida as a fire medic for many, many years, and I had a partner who was probably 6'8". Stand up if you want, give him a reference. I'm just kidding. Anyways, so we were actually doing search and rescue in a retirement community. Somebody had a pool in the retirement community, so we're walking through, sifting through debris, and my partner and I, he's huge, next to me. All of a sudden, he's gone. Gone. I don't know where he went. I'm like, So there was a pool that we did not see because it was flooded so high. We were walking through water. We had no idea. I mean, for me, it was up to my chest. For him, it was up to his knees. But he fell in the pool and was gone. And luckily, he can swim. And that's another thing to consider as well. With that tip is try to drain your pools if you can. If you have a pool in your area, drain it halfway. Drain it out. What that does is when it starts to get a lot of rain and accumulation and nowhere for it to go, that gives it somewhere to go. If your pool is completely full and then it starts to rain real bad, all you're doing is adding to the flooding. So that's another good tip for you as well. So if you have any questions for maybe you're thinking that in the back of your mind. I'm sure you were. But I don't have to duck for most things. So anyways, any questions at all? Sure.
My father is bedridden, and we live in the Southport city limits. And my question, in the event of a mandatory evacuation, should we contact the fire department, or who do we need to contact, and who will come and get him, and where are some potential sites that he may go, and can my mother ride in the vehicle with him?
Okay, I can help answer that question. We need to go ahead and have him on our list. We have an emergency evacuation list, and people with special needs that are on oxygen, that are bed-bound patients, wheelchair-bound patients. We have a list so that in the event of an emergency, we're going to be contacting you, and we're going to say, what is your plan? What do you want us to do to help you, so that we can either transport him to a facility for evacuation, or we can line up transport for you. So if you're not already on our list, we need to get you on that list, and I can provide you. I'll get your email, and we'll make contact and make sure that we've got that already done, because we have a special needs list already, so that in the event that there's a threat of a storm, we're contacting people on that special needs list, just like Terabella, Liberty. We're in constant contact with the hospital. So we want you on that list so that we can have that all situated and handled. We know what we need. So you may already be on the list. Are you new to Southport, or?
My parents have been here for about a year, and she believes that she's on the list.
Okay.
I have been contacted by them, yes.
Okay, great. So, but
I have forgotten which group that it was, quite frankly, that we were.
Okay. And it may be the police department's list, but we'll make sure that we follow up on this to make sure you're on the list, so that we can prepare for that beforehand. Okay?
Thank you.
Okay. Any other questions? All right. So our next presenters, and we're coming down to the, thank you. Since we just talked about the water rescue equipment, this is just going to be some little trivia time while Travis and Tori are coming up to do our next presentation from the planning department. The City of Southport Fire Department performed several water rescues during Hurricane Florence. All right. Anybody want to guess how many? Just in our fire district, our fire department. Anybody want to take a guess? Not y'all. How many? 45. Who said 45? It was actually 43 water rescues during Hurricane Florence. So rescuing people out of their cars, houses that got stranded in water. So this equipment is very important to us, especially during storms. Okay, Travis and Tori.
Thank you, Chief. Good evening. Thank you to all of you for coming and for sticking around. My name is Travis Henley. I'm the Development Services Director. Beside me is Tori DeVinny, our permit technician. Typically, this section of the expo would be given by the building inspector. We're filling in for him. He had a late-breaking conflict, so we're going to do our best. A lot of what we had to say you've already heard probably 5 or 6 times already tonight, so we're going to try to go quick, and I'll let Tori kick us off.
Hello, thanks for being here, and I'm just going to say exactly what everybody else said, so I'm just going to say it better. Just kidding. All right, so the first thing you want to do when you hear about a storm is you want to assess your house. We like to say plan, because what planning is you want to prepare for the storm by looking around to assess the property, that you can analyze what needs to be done before the storm and handle all necessities first. So checking your house for loose gutters, loose shingles, loose boards. When you have wind, any kind of wind, it can be a little gust of wind. If it catches that right, it's going to catch it and throw it aside. It's going to hit something else. It's going to hit your neighbor's. Your neighbor's house can do the same thing for yours. So be sure to check your shutters, your gutters, your shingles, your boards, anything that could be loose. Clean your gutters. And I know nobody wants to get up on the ladder and clean your gutters, especially on a weekend, but it is very important that you do this. Just like yesterday with that torrential downpour that we had, I found a spot in my gutters that hadn't been cleaned because a nice little dove decided to build a nest. So all the water started piling down in that one area, and it started putting a hole in my ground. It started getting on my porch. And even though you have a Category 1 storm, if it lasts for a whole week like Florence did, stuff is going to happen. You're going to have big holes. Your boards can be damaged over time. They could rot, and then you'll have even more damage. So go ahead and get up on that ladder and clean that gutter. Do it before the storm, because when it's raining and your wife is yelling at you, we don't want to have to fall off of it and call the fire department or EMS to come save you before the storm. And cover large windows and doors. I don't know about y'all, but I grew up in Bowling Springs and on a property that had about 20 pine trees. And those green pine cones are like missiles. So I've seen a couple of them go through my windows. It's not fun. It could potentially cause damage to the windows, go inside and hit somebody in the head, and again, nobody's going to be able to come save you right then. You can use anything. Make sure you don't cover your doors, okay, because you want to be able to get out if you have to. But just something up there to kind of block the debris that could be flying. Even little pine needles are hurting whenever they come flying at 130 miles an hour. Secure loose items. I know you've heard it before, but patio furniture, you don't really think about it because it's just out there. You don't want to do anything with it. Bird feeders, plants, toys, picnic tables. That was a big subject today. Umbrellas. I mean, this last one we had the dumpster floating down Yacht Basin Drive. Anything can happen. You don't realize it. You don't think it can move, but it will. Let's see here. I'm going to let Travis do the trees.
Yeah, the trees. It's definitely I hear it more often than I probably thought when I came to Southport that you need a permit to do anything with regard to a tree, and that's almost the case. But if you are just trimming or pruning a tree, you do not need a tree impact permit in order to do that. You can go ahead and do that as needed on your property. Definitely take time to, look up sometimes when you're outside, see if there's any limbs that need to come down. Oh, thank you. As we've, again, talked about a number of times before, securing all vehicles and boats, making sure the boats on your property are properly secured. Make sure vehicles are in a safe location. Electric vehicles came up earlier. If you know you have a low spot on your property where water collects, maybe don't park the electric vehicle in that location. Make sure your vehicles are in a place where you can easily get to them. Thank you, Tori. Flood insurance. This is probably the one we haven't talked about yet. Who here has flood insurance? Okay, now who here has it for a reason other than that the federal government told you you had to have it? Okay, we need to pump those numbers up, guys. Flood insurance, especially if you are not in a flood zone, can be very inexpensive, and it is definitely something worth having. I was not with Southport when Florence hit, but I was with Pender County, and the flooding we saw up there was absolute devastation, and the folks who had flood insurance recovered a lot quicker than the folks who did not. The floodwaters, in a flood, especially of that magnitude, what's shown on a map as a flood zone, the storm does not care about what's on that map. It'll flood where it's going to flood. And having that flood insurance can be a whole lot of peace of mind. Now, the time to get flood insurance is not when Hurricane Charles is out in the Atlantic coming right for us. Most of these insurance policies have at least a 30-day lag period when you sign up before they actually take effect. So the time to be looking at flood insurance, if you're interested in that, would be right now. There's the plan again, as Tori mentioned: prepare, look, analyze, and focus on the necessities. And then, so after the storm, we are going to be here, myself, Tori, city planner, building inspector, some of our other part-time inspectors. We're going to be here making sure that any permits that you need, you can get them, and you can get them quickly. Tree removal permit is always free, whether you're removing it today or after a storm. But if you're actually taking down a tree that hasn't fallen, that will still require a tree removal permit. Take the.
So building permits, we're not trying to get money. We're trying to make sure that you are safe, because like Chief Corin said, vendors are going to be piling up waiting to come in here and take your money and treat you wrong. They're going to come in here, do it fast, and leave you hanging. So that is what our department does. We come in to make sure that they are doing it correctly by code, to make sure that it is okay and safe for you guys. It's not about us, it's about the safety for everybody in Southport. So please remember that. We're not trying to just put more pain on you, we're trying to help you. You could probably use a building permit if something was flooded, a plumbing permit, electrical permit. Again, like everybody was saying, you know, if you know that your lights are out, try to go around to every room in your house and turn off everything that you have. And that way, when the lights do come back on, you don't have that big power surge and everything blows. So that will help with any electrical issues. Plumbing is the same way. You don't want to think that you turned off your water and then it come back on after the lights are on and you have a flooded house again. We are out assessing after the storm, your city piers, your docks, low white parks, you know, so again, like everybody was saying, don't go out after the storm thinking it's okay, because you don't know what kind of damage is done. If a tree's falling on a deck, you don't know how sturdy it is, and that is what our building inspector is doing. We're out there making sure that everything is safe, along with public services, public works, the fire department, and the police department. We're here to help you guys, and we want to make sure that y'all are safe, because that's just what we want to do. So I think that's all I have.
Our fire marshal is going to present next, followed by Cheyenne, and then we're going to wrap up our session.
Well, I'm going to say exactly what everybody else has said. It's just repeat. Oh, thank you. Appreciate it. They said thank you, by the way. And we're going to be talking about fire safety during the storm. So let's just talk for just a minute about being prepared before the storm. You need to have a hurricane disaster plan. So, of course, like it's already been said, please locate local shelters and map the route. It's going to cut down travel time. If you're not ordered to evacuate, we definitely say find shelter in your home. The safest place during a hurricane is the interior room without windows. So get your home and yard ready. If you can, install hurricane shelters. Remove dead trees and branches and diseased trees and branches. Identify items in the yard that should be brought inside. Clean the rain gutters, outside stairwells. Family members can be separated during a hurricane, so be prepared by creating a plan on how to reach one another. Establish an out-of-area contact, such as a relative or family friend, who can coordinate family members' locations, information, should you become separated. Store propane tanks away from the residence, and as a last resort, stored in your garage. Now I'm going to show you a couple of photos. Please don't be this guy. This is gasoline that he's putting in the back of his pickup truck. And don't be this guy. That is Tupperware containers. Or this guy. This is some very smart individuals, not really, that decided that they needed gasoline. And so they put it in plastic bags and Tupperware containers and in the back of their truck. No, please don't be like that. Please use approved containers to store flammable liquids. Okay? During the storm, we're going to do a couple of things. If the watch has been issued in your area and it's favorable that it could produce a hurricane, please listen to the news, your weather updates. I know that Chief Drew is always on it about doing Facebook Live videos and keeping everybody informed, so pay attention to those kinds of things. Pay attention to the city communication outlets. Cover your windows with hurricane shutters or plywood. Remain inside, away from windows and doors. During power outages, try to avoid carrying a lit candle. So we're definitely pushing that. Please use flashlights instead. We do not want you starting a fire, especially if the winds have gotten to a place where the fire trucks cannot get out at that point. Don't be fooled by the calm of the storm when the eye of the hurricane is above your area. The worst of the storm is probably still yet to come. Never use a candle, like we said, for light when checking pilot lights or fueling equipment such as kerosene heaters or lanterns. This flame may ignite the fumes. And we say all of this because somebody has done it. Don't be fooled by the calm. Be prepared for tornadoes caused by hurricanes. Remain inside and at the center of your home or in a closet or in a basement as long as there's no flooding. So how can we be fire safe before, during, or after the storm? Locate the closest fire extinguisher. Avoid overcrowding in any building or location. That's including shelters. Locate exits, at least 2, and ensure that they're unlocked and not blocked. If you need to use temporary cooking and lighting devices in emergency situations, be sure to do this. Exercise caution when using candles, alternate portable methods for cooking, such as camping stoves. Restrict their use to well-ventilated areas. Keep combustible materials, especially paper and cardboard boxes, away from open flames, space heaters, and other electrical devices. Keep electrical circuits from overloading by limiting the number of electrical devices that are plugged into outlets. And if you're staying in a hotel or a motel, please make sure that smoke detectors are working. If there is a power outage, if the power goes out in the middle of the storm, we don't never want to use generators, grills, camp stoves, gasoline, propane, natural gas, or charcoal burning devices inside your home, inside your basement, inside your garage, your camper, or even outside near an open window. In addition to following the safety manual for your specific generator, there's one big tip that you should follow. Keep it outside and away from your house or other buildings. This is going to prevent the danger of carbon monoxide entering your home. It's also very smart to let your generator turn off, cool down before refueling, since it's gasoline and can ignite on hot surfaces. No one wants the power to go out during a storm, but if it does, you may need to resort to backup lighting options for getting around. When possible, opt for flame-free alternatives to candles. Use flashlights, battery-operated lights. If you do need to use candles for whatsoever reason, avoid carrying them from room to room to prevent that open flame from getting caught in the wind or posing any other safety risks. After the storm, stay out of buildings that have been damaged or flooded and obey detour and warning signs. Use extreme cautions going out of doors. Be ready for broken glass and damage to building foundations, streets, and bridges. Stay away from downed power lines. Keep listening to the radio or the weather for all hazards. Watch for closed roads. And if you come upon a barricade or a flood road, please turn around. And if you've evacuated, do not return to your home unless local authorities say that it's safe. So how can we prepare? That's the biggest question. Let's test our smoke and carbon monoxide alarms. Make sure that your smoke alarm has a backup battery. Use surge protectors. Don't use like regular just drop cords. Consider unplugging appliances when you're not using them. Disconnect motor vehicle batteries in flood-prone areas. Take steps to prevent pipes from freezing and heat escaping from your home, and review your home fire escape plan. And that's all I've got. That was easy, quick, and simple. Are there any questions that I might can answer? And if I can't, there's a bunch of people here that can.
Where do you put your propane?
So if you've got a shed or something that's not normal, like somebody doesn't normally live in, that's where we would suggest you putting it, like in a shed or something like that. But if you can't do that, the last resort would be put it in a garage or somewhere like that.
What about gasoline cans?
Basically the same idea. You'd want to put it, if you can't put it in your shed, then put it in your garage or something, but don't store it in the house. Yeah. Any other questions? All right, Cheyenne, it's your turn.
I do have an evacuation question. I know that basically Southport is one way in and one way out, especially with the road 87 and 133. Is that an evacuation route along with 211, or do we all stay on 211 till we get to 17?
I'm not sure on that one.
So you would not want to take 133 is not a designated hurricane route because of the flooding. So you would want to take 211. You would want to take Highway 133 or 87 through BSL out that way is normally the two routes that we would use. But like earlier, depending on the severity of the storm, we'll have those areas manned, whether it's Highway Patrol, Sheriff's Office. We have a networking group that'll do that to help, move traffic the best we can.
Okay.
So,
thank you.
you're welcome.
You did it. You're almost at the end. We're almost there. All right, my name is Cheyenne. I am the Communications and Public Information Officer for the city. So I'm going to talk to you about Southport Connected, which is our Code Red system. So that is how we're getting the emergency alerts out to you guys. So in addition to social media and the website being updated, we are also going to be sending out these emergency alert notifications to your email and your cell phone. So that's what I just said. So we're going to move on. How does it work? Again, they are sent out via email, text message, and phone calls as well. So if you receive our newsletter on the first of every month at 10 a.m., that's the same system that we will use to send out these emergency alert notifications. So last year was my first hurricane season with Southport, but I'm originally from Johnston County, North Carolina. It is 40 minutes east of Raleigh, so I've grown up with hurricanes my entire life. I've worked with Johnston County Emergency Services and Code Red with them. So I'm definitely not new to hurricanes, but last year was my first hurricane season with Southport. So that was the first time that I used the system for Southport and getting that information out to y'all. So that was the first time we used it. So you received those again, even though it was a Category 1 that dissipated into a tropical storm. We were sending out those updates as we were getting them from Chief Drew and the EOC, getting those out to you guys through Code Red, updating it on the website, and then getting that out on Facebook and our social media channels as well. It is a free resource. I love free, you love free, I love a good deal, and there's no deal that's better than free. It is an opt-in, you're not required to have it, but again, it is a great tool to have in your back pocket, quite literally. And the really cool thing about it, when you do decide to opt in, if you put your physical address on there, you will also be able to opt in to National Weather Service alerts for Brunswick County and the nation. So if there's anything that is sent through the Brunswick County emergency alert system, that will be sent to you as well. And anything that's sent from the National Weather Service will also be sent to you as well. So if there's something that they're sending out that we haven't sent out yet, or that they're sending out, has anybody gotten those emergency alert notifications at 3 a.m. that scare you out of your deep sleep? Those? Yep, that's why. So they have access to do that. Hopefully, you know, knock on wood, I won't have to do that for you guys, but register just in case. How do you register? So here, there's 3 very simple steps. You can scan this nifty little QR code with the camera on your phone. And if you're not sure how to do that, come find me afterwards. I can show you how. Or you can go to our website under the Emergency Information tab. I actually just finished updating that webpage this past week, so now it has all fun updated buttons that are a little bit more user-friendly. They're easier to look at, easier on the eye, and a little bit more informative, so that way it tells you more specifically what you're about to click on and the information that you're finding. So after you go to that link or scan the QR code, you'll click Enroll Now, or Enroll Now, and then Connect Me. That's where you're going to fill out that information. So it's your name, your address, and your contact information. So your cell phone number, your home phone number, if that's different. I know some people still do have a home phone. I am 27. I'm a millennial. I do not have a home phone. My home phone is my cell phone. So I just have the one phone number, and then I have my personal email and my work email in that system as well. And then follow us. So in addition to Code Red, we talked very briefly earlier about the different social media channels that you can find emergency information on. So in addition to the Southport Fire Department and Southport Police Department Facebook pages, you can also follow the City of Southport NC and Southport NC Emergency Information. So all 4 of those channels will be rotating that information during any emergency events, severe weather, things of that nature. So again, fun QR codes, that'll take you directly to those Facebook pages. Or if you go in your Facebook search bar, type in City of Southport, it's gonna bring up all of the Southport Facebook pages. So while you're up there, just go ahead and hit follow for all of them. Go ahead and bump our analytics up. I'll love that, everybody else will love that. And then while you're at it, just start liking all of our pictures too. That'll be cool. I'll enjoy that. But really, we are also updating those pages consistently during emergency events, because we want to make sure that we're getting that information to you through as many avenues, as many channels as possible, because God forbid when it does happen, we don't know what channels we're still going to have and how long we're going to have them. So getting that out as quickly and on as many as possible is extremely important. So, before I get into any questions for me, because I know that was kind of quick, you do have your paper emergency information kit, which has a lot of information from FEMA in it, that Chief Drew spoke about. There are digital versions on it on the city website under the emergency information page. And then in the back, on the table back there, there are also some booklets. There's one that says, "Are you ready? An in-depth guide to citizen preparedness." Please take one. In the back. If I end up running out, I have more in my office. So there's also business cards back there. So if I run out and you would like one, please grab a business card and email me or call me tomorrow and I'll get you one. There's also an emergency financial first aid kit as well, booklet back there. And I also have this one in large print as well because they make these things so small. And like I said, I'm 27, but these things, I swear, it is very difficult to read sometimes. But there's a large print version as well. So please grab one. Take those folders home with you. There's family communication plan cards in there. Fill them out, practice it, plan it. You've heard this for the last 2 hours. I hope you dream about it tonight. So that way you're ready. So that when this happens, not this year, but when this happens, you're ready. And you're gonna go and register for Code Red tonight, right, everybody? Thank you. All right, questions? Captain Homick's suggestion for those who didn't hear them and for the people back home, that whenever you register for Code Red, after you get that first phone call, save the phone number as the county or as Southport Code Red or Southport Connected, so that way you have it saved, so when you get it a second time, you're not ignoring the phone call, and that your phone recognizes it and they don't send it to spam. Any Southport Connected questions before we move into the panel questions? Chief?
So when there's a threat for a hurricane, the city of Southport is not an island by itself. We have many resources that we're reaching out to. County, state resources, federal resources. We're in connection and constant contact with our hospital that's in our community, with the two nursing facilities that we have, Liberty Commons and Terabella. We're also in connection and constant contact with Duke, Progress, and Brunswick Electric. So we're not an island by ourselves. We're reaching out to all these different resources. I notice in the back of the room we have David McIntyre here. He is from Brunswick County Emergency Management, and we appreciate the partnership that we share with Brunswick County Emergency Management. When we have an emergency and an event, we're in constant contact with them through Web EOC. All of our requests would go to the county, and then they would forward them on to the state or whoever we would have a need, whatever we would have a need for. So we appreciate all of you being here. Like Chief Treadway said, there's equipment outside on display for you to take a look at as you leave the presentation today. There's emergency preparedness kits. Kate Marshall has animal emergency kits on her table and a lot of good, useful information for those of you that have pets. Thank you to all city departments and all presenters today. I'm going to end this with just opening the floor for any questions that you may have for any presenter today from the panel. If you have questions, you can raise your hands, and then we're going to dismiss. Cheyenne. I have a question from Facebook Live. Okay. Are sandbags available? Our home floods very heavily during floods during heavy rains, and because we have no storm drains in our area. Okay. The city would not be able to provide sandbags. So that would be something that you would have to do on your own. That would be something you would have to line up on your own through a private contractor. But the city doesn't have resources to provide sandbags. Good question, though. Other questions? Okay, hearing none. We appreciate you being here. This is an annual event. I hope the information that you've received, you don't have to put it into action, because I hope that we don't have a storm this year, but we want you to be prepared. Thank you for coming tonight.